right, V, you ready?
Let's do this.
All right. Hello and welcome to Talk Heathen! It is June 28th, 2020, Season 4, Episode 26. I'm Eric Murphy.
I'm Bianca.
Hey, V, how's it going?
It's going good.
Good. Wow, it has been like a really, really quick week. What have you been up to?
Oh gosh, what have I been up to? I cut my hair again.
I can see that.
Yeah. Pardon the Proud Boys cut. It wasn't intentional.
Oh no, I didn't even think about that. Oh,
Yeah.
Okay. Well, now we know where the comments are going to go. That's fine.
Yeah.
So I don't want to take up too much if we're going to be diving right into calls. I do want to say that for people who want to go to our Discord at 3 p.m. Central, the nonprofits are going to be there hanging out in the Discord. So if you want to go and talk to people and be a part of that conversation, definitely do hop over to the Discord. The link is just underneath us, tiny.cc/ACA Discord. As always, I want to let you know that Talk Heathen is a production of the Atheist community of Austin. It's a 501c3 nonprofit, and it's put on by you. If it wasn't for you, we wouldn't be able to get all of the equipment and gear and things that we need to put this on. All of the programs, especially during all this stuff during COVID, we've had to go remote. And we sincerely appreciate your contributions. If you'd like to support us, you can go to patreon.com/talkheathen-to-me. That's patreon.com/talkheathen-to-me. And we also have a merch store. And okay, hold on. First, the merch store link. Yes, there's the merch store link. I know we announced it last week, but I don't think people really got this.
Yeah.
V, we can have international callers now.
For free.
Yes.
Yeah.
So if you are watching and you've wanted to call in and you're like, look, I can't handle the long distance, we totally understand. And we've been working behind the scenes. I say I'm taking credit for our amazing crew who's been working behind the scenes to make that happen. So if you're international, you want to call in, hop on your computer and go to that tiny.cc link /callth and talk to us. I'm really excited about that.
It's going to be great.
Yeah, definitely. All right. If there is nothing else going, I'd love to dive into calls. Anything else, V?
Just a reminder that we do thank the patrons 2/3 of the way through the episode. So if you want to help support us and you donate within the next hour and a half, we will refresh the page. And if you're one of the top patrons, your name will get shouted out on air. So if that sounds interesting or exciting to you, consider doing that.
Awesome. V, that's perfect. Thank you. All right. Let's dive into calls. Let's talk to Rufus in North Carolina. Rufus, you're live with Eric and V. What would you like to talk about today?
Hello? Yeah, now you're banning people from the show, right? This is
Oh, God, you're done, bud. All right. That's okay. So
It's a bummer.
Honestly, it's interesting when you have trolls call in or people think that they deserve a spot on your platform. That's
right?
The way it is. Nope. All right. Let's talk to someone we know is good. Let's talk to Father John in Canada.
Hey, Father John is back.
Hey.
Hello.
How are you?
Doing good today.
Doing well. I'm glad you decided to call back. I know last time we talked, I said that I would have trouble talking about anything but COVID with you. But after your call, I talked to a good number of people who said, look, there's other good information and conversations that you can have. And so I'm glad you called in.
Yes, and I actually have a specific talk that I thought V would be interested in.
Yeah, let's hear it.
Okay, if I'm not mistaken, you were Roman Catholic, correct?
I was not. We have another host on a show who has been. I was not. I was a non-denominational Christian back in the day.
Okay.
I was baptized Catholic.
Pardon me?
I was baptized Catholic. I don't know if that helps.
Okay. Well, so I thought someone had mentioned, I guess I was a bit mixed up, after leaving whatever community it was, they were accused of not truly being a believer in the first place.
Yes, that is accurate.
Okay, well, my way of dealing with that actually has to do with Roman Catholic canon law, so I don't think that would be applicable for you.
Is it the once a Catholic, always a Catholic kind of deal there?
Well, see, it's kind of a confusing thing. It depends whether you're a convert or whether you're what's called a cradle Catholic.
Right.
Because they do have their confirmation at an older age, unlike the Orthodox. And with their canon 889, it says it's subsection 2. It says to receive confirmation licitly outside of danger of death requires that a person who has the use of reason be suitably instructed, properly disposed, and able to renew the baptismal promises. So if you don't feel you were properly instructed, especially if you have a specific area where you completely disagreed before receiving their confirmation, you could quote this canon and say, well, you guys didn't properly instruct me, therefore it makes my confirmation illicit.
Interesting. Loopholes in theology.
Yeah, I mean,
Right.
okay.
Well, it's actually not theology. I had a Roman Catholic bishop say to me once, this is not theology, this is canon law, which to me, I have to full-heartedly agree with him, which means it's not particularly useful.
Well,
So I'm curious then.
Yes?
Yeah, kind of going off that, because we've got you on the line and you raised an interesting point, and I kind of want to dig a little bit here, if you don't mind.
Mm-hmm.
So my question then is, that's a cool workaround. So if you wanted to say, hey, I was never Catholic, this is why, I'm quoting subsection B of, wherever, then that's interesting. That's a cool workaround. Do you believe that kind of thing actually has any bearing on whether or not you were saved?
No, none whatsoever. It's an easy way to deal with Roman Catholics. Because they're very much tied into legalism and stuff. And so what I actually did when I realized what was wrong with Roman Catholicism was I executed a late sentete excommunication upon myself, and that's according to Canon 1364, because I had publicly taught, according to Roman Catholic perspective, heresy as a catechist, bringing people into Roman Catholicism.
Sure.
So I actually had to retroactively do that because I had switched. I guess it's transferred, is what it is, from Roman Catholicism to the Ukrainian Catholics, and they don't actually have late sentete excommunications in their code of canon law because they've given a separate code. I think it was 1984 they were given their old code rather than using the Roman Catholic code.
May I?
Yeah, go for it.
So Father John, you said that you're convinced of one form of Catholicism and another form of Catholicism is heresy. And so there has to be something in there.
No. Actually, it depends what you mean by the word Catholicism, because I transferred from Roman Catholicism to
Eastern Orthodox.
Well, no. It's called Ukrainian Catholic. They're part of the Uniates.
Okay.
There was a number. This gets into church history, but they're under the Pope of Rome. They're part of the Roman Catholicism.
Okay.
But I've left them altogether. I have no connection with them now.
Why?
Yeah, you're Orthodox, right?
Right.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. Why? So it sounds like you made a decision, and I'm assuming that you used the best evidence available to you to make an informed decision to leave from one very specific version of a religion to another very specific version. What convinced you? And really, ultimately, what I want to know is, what convinced you convince us to be a part of it? I mean, what tools did you use to get from A to B?
Well, the thing is that I had, when I attempted to become Roman Catholic, I was a convert as an adult. And I was under the mistaken belief that the Orthodox and Roman Catholics were part of the same community. They just had divisions within themselves. That's a common belief among many Roman Catholics, and that's what I understood without having fully investigated Orthodoxy to know that they were actually very different.
Okay,
And
so why one over
mhm.
the other?
Why one over the other?
Yeah.
Well, see, originally I thought they were all the same, and that the divisions between them needed to be healed.
I get that.
There's actually four groups.
Well, so hold on. I don't really care about the other groups. I care about you. We're talking to you, John. And so,
right, exactly. But the thing is that this is what I believed. I believed that all four of these groups were the one true church. So that was the Roman Catholics.
Right.
What
convinced you otherwise?
Pardon me?
What convinced you otherwise?
Of what? Oh, that they're not all the same.
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, I actually was finding more and more differences, and I was building philosophical bridges to try to make it so that they're still the same. But what actually was the last straw was when I took a course in scholastic philosophy and realized that the source of Roman Catholic theology is it's actually human intellect. It's basically what Friedrich Nietzsche said or saw, that they were just dealing with philosophical concepts of God. So
I don't think the Catholics consulted with Nietzsche. I
never said that. I said I agree with what he said, that what he saw was that they were just dealing with philosophical concept of God. That's their version of theology, a philosophical discourse on divinity, which is the pagan definition of theology.
Well, hold on. I know that's your definition for them, because they would say something otherwise. I'm sure.
Actually, no. Actually, that is the classical definition.
Yeah. So. All right.
I saw that when I saw this course. I saw that is where they're actually deriving the theology from, rather than through divine revelation. John,
you're doing the No True Scotsman thing, and you're being prescriptivist about it. Let me be very, very clear here. If somebody were to call, hold on, let me finish my sentence, John. Please let me finish. Please. When someone calls in, they say they want to talk about faith. I have a definition of faith, and they have a definition of faith. And our definitions might be different, so we can talk past each other. The same is true for belief. The same is true for a lot of those definitions. And so I'm not out to invalidate someone else's definition. Instead, what I want to do is meet them where their definition is, and then have a productive conversation. And so if you're saying, by definition, I made this choice, then what I want to explore is what motivated you to make the choice? Because if we're going to argue about definitions, I feel like the proper thing for me to do is find a Roman Catholic who disagrees with you, so you two could have the conversation. Otherwise, I'm filling in the spot that I don't feel is appropriate.
Right. No, I understand, but to realize that this is not my definition. These are definitions that were put out many centuries ago, so it has nothing to do with me, and it has nothing to do with the No True Scotsman fallacy, because these are documented. It's got nothing to do with me. My opinion.
Okay, Father John. John, can I ask a question?
Yes.
Okay, so moving away from definitions for a minute here, you said something that I found very interesting, which was it was a philosophical exercise, right? It was human intellect building, as you said, kind of philosophical bridges in a way that was very maybe logical, and like it dealt with logic and it dealt with philosophy, but it wasn't concrete. It didn't have anything to do with the real world necessarily. That is very similar to my experience as well. As I was deconverting, I was realizing that a lot of what I had been taught in the various traditions that I was exposed to was actually this building of philosophical bridges to get to conclusions that felt right or felt good or, backed up prior belief. So my question is, what is different about orthodoxy? How is that not building philosophical bridges? What about that is different than what you're saying Roman Catholics are doing?
There's no philosophical bridges to build in Orthodoxy.
How do you mean?
Well, I'm not quite sure what you mean.
Well, do you not have
idea-
a philosophy, a theology, a method of talking about the way God works in the world in Orthodoxy? I would imagine all those fall under some kind of philosophy or theology.
We would have to get behind the definition of theology then, because we view that very differently than just mere philosophy. See that
Ooh, mere philosophy. Okay. So wait. So I kind of So I view theology as kind of a subset of philosophy that deals with God and ontological states of the world and the supernatural and all of that. Are you saying it's a completely different category than philosophy? How are you defining these?
Well, see, yeah, exactly. What you just defined is extremely common, as I was mentioning before with Eric, where it's just it's actually the lowest form of theology, which is a philosophical discourse on divinity, and this is what the pagan Greeks did. And really,
fascinating. Okay. All right. So this is interesting to me. I'm enjoying this. So there's theology as a larger concept, and then underneath that is a smaller philosophical discourse about God and about the universe, which you would consider to be a subset of theology. What's the rest of it? I'm imagining there's probably some history in there as well. You seem to like church history a little bit, so there's probably that, right? But what else is in theology if not talking about the ontological existence of a creator or a God?
Well, Scripture itself is often referred to theology. Prayer is a higher form of theology, and the highest form of theology is union with God.
Oh, okay.
So you're using
where
theology
you're
in a weird way.
You're using theology in a very strange way. Is that?
Well, this is actually how the Orthodox use the word theology, and why all other religions or ideas are actually at the lower level.
But other religions believe that they also pray and have unification with God. They may not call it theology, but they also have that same experience or claim to. Who are you to say that they don't have access to that higher realm of theology?
Well, if I were to not say that, then I would actually be denying my own faith, because if we believe we are the one true faith, how could we possibly say that we're not?
That feels like circular logic to me, though, doesn't it? We are the one true faith because we are the one true faith because we are the one true faith, right? What are you using to back that up, apart from the claim that you are the one true faith?
Okay, well, see, that's a completely different. I didn't make any statement defending that we are one true faith. I just said we believe that.
Okay, so why do you believe that?
Why do I believe that?
Yeah.
Well, there's many reasons. Many people come to that place various ways, and I don't think it's particularly relevant. I'm not.
Oh, that is the most relevant thing we've talked about on this call. That's what we ask people. What do you believe and why? You believe that you are part of the one true faith, and we're asking why.
Can somebody come to the right answer for the wrong reasons?
It simply has been my experience. This is what I believe.
That's not good enough. And I'm sure you wouldn't expect that to be good enough for other people. And I'll tell you why. What if I told you that I was rooting around in my own made up holy book, and it told me that you were right? And so now I'm coming and going, I know that it's true because my fictitious book says it's true. Would you accept that? Maybe I had a bad dream. Maybe I looked in my alphabet soup and saw, something in there. Are all of those good ways to get to your religion?
Well, if that's how someone has chosen to do it, I can't deny the fact that is what they did.
That's terrible.
That's the reality.
Don't you want people to believe things for good reasons?
We're not asking whether or not we believe they've come to a conclusion based on evidence, however good or bad. That's not what we're asking.
The thing is,
John,
people have had their experiences, they have their reasons, and I'm not going to invalidate those experiences and reasons.
No, that's not that's not how you get to truth, though. You did invalidate experience and reasons before when you said that Catholic theology was not accurate and was a bad way of getting to the truth. You recognized that, and you left an entire church denomination because you recognize that there are bad ways to get to evidence. So why not hold Orthodox feet to the fire as well?
As I said, it had to do with experience. It was not my experience that you get to the ultimate truth through scholastic endeavors, through intellectual process, through philosophy.
So you're saying that this is purely experiential and that you are not making any claims about the universe outside of your experience of it?
Yes.
Okay, so God does not exist outside of your head?
No, because the reality that I have experienced is outside of my head.
You're still talking about your experience. If you're only relying on your own experience, dude, then yeah, it's all in your head.
I know, but that's the same as everyone else.
So here's the thing. I'm not dedicating my life to something unless I have good reason to, which is why we need to look for evidence for the things that we accept to be true so that we can make sure that we're not wasting our time or possibly doing something dangerous. It's the same reason why we investigate whether or not somebody, should take essential oils instead of going to the doctor.
Yes, and all that comes down to your experience. If you hadn't experienced those things.
Yeah, but no, absolutely not. So if you, instead of going to get cancer, right?
Explain to me. Oh, sorry.
No worries. There's probably a delay. If you had the choice to go and get radiation therapy, chemotherapy for your cancer, and somebody else said, no, Reiki and this kind of massage or this kind of essential oil will do it instead, then no, it's not just up to your opinion. You want to find what's backed by evidence and what's replicable, because you don't have more than one shot at that a lot of the time.
Exactly. And so you go by what you have experienced.
No, you don't.
When you look at the evidence, you have experience looking at that evidence. That is your experience.
You look at the evidence.
So
that's the key word there.
Your experience in looking at that evidence. So
okay, we're going back to a circular logic, though. We're saying experience is evidence and evidence is experience.
No, you experience evidence.
Okay, what is your evidence that you have experienced that convinced you that your faith was the one true faith?
We will use Eric's example there with the cancer. So when I had cancer, I had a lot of experience. My brother-in-law is an oncologist. I went to the actual hospital that I'd been in before when he was checking on his experiments there when he was a student, and I experienced the information they gave me, and I made the decision to follow the course of chemo and stuff that they told me to follow. That was my experience. Since then, I've experienced a lot of other evidence with people using cannabis products and stuff like that, and with what I have experienced, seeing people do this, what I experienced, the evidence that I see is that there's a lot of value in these cannabis therapies, and there's a lot of pharmaceutical misdeeds being done within the medical profession. That is my experience. That is what I have seen.
So Father John.
Yes.
I get what you're saying. I do.
Right. Right.
So there are things that we can identify as true in the world outside of our experience. Right. You can learn about a place that you've never been to.
Right, but you have experienced evidence about that, haven't you? I mean, you don't believe in places that you've never heard of before because they're not within your realm of experience.
Right, and then
you haven't even heard of them.
And
you are not conscious of
hold on. I think you're conflating something here, man. So just because you experience something does not mean that all experiences are valid, right? I can also have a lucid dream or night terrors.
Mhm.
I could be suffering from something going terribly wrong in my brain. Is that experience just as valid and just as true? Oh, not valid, but true as anybody else's experience? If I said that, I dreamt that I was flying like Superman, that is just as true as somebody who said that they drove to work today? It's just my experience. So who are you to say that it didn't happen?
Well, you're saying if you experience a dream of flying.
Mm-hmm.
Is that what you're talking about?
Yeah,
Because
and
I
I
would
was
say yes,
and I
you
was
very much
convinced that
did
it actually
experience
happened.
the dream of flying.
No,
Yeah,
in this example,
And
I
I'm-
was convinced that it actually happened.
Know the difference between an experience of a dream and an experience of being awake. You can also have similar experiences while awake. Delusional stuff while you're awake.
Okay, so how do you discount delusions?
People experience this.
Right, and so
a person who is going through a delusion cannot differentiate between what is real and what's not. Their experience is that delusion.
Okay, so how do you determine between an experience that is a delusion and an experience that is not a delusion?
something that maps to reality.
Right.
That is the important thing that everyone has to figure out.
Well, how did you figure it out?
How did I figure it out? What specific are you referring to? Because, there's been
Come on, John. You know what specific we're referring to. We've been asking you the whole time.
Which specific?
That your religion is the one true faith. That's the claim you made. That's what you said you believed. Yeah. So how did you determine that was mapped to reality versus a delusion?
Well, okay. Well, the thing is that I had believed that before while I was Roman Catholic, and I believed that the Roman Catholics, what's commonly referred to as the Eastern Orthodox, as well as the Oriental Orthodox, and what's referred to the Assyrian Church of the East, were all one church, and that was the true faith. That's what I believed.
Why did you believe it?
That was not true. Why did I believe
Why did you?
that?
Yeah.
Well, that goes farther back to where I realized that because I grew up within the Protestant faith.
Okay.
And I had realized that it was that sola scriptura was did not make any sense. It logically contradicts itself. Looking at history, and I realized that was wrong, and that what was needed was apostolic succession.
Okay, so hold on. So scripture alone, you're saying, is not sufficient. Why is scripture alone not sufficient? Why would your God create a system where they give you the scripture, but that scripture is not sufficient? I guess I should ask you one of those, huh? I asked you a bunch of them. Let's start with...
it's actually very simple. It's very simple. Who wrote the New Testament?
We have
some people who we know, other people we don't.
Yeah, we have been able to track back to an author like Paul.
Did the Christian faith exist before they wrote it?
No.
It obviously did. It obviously existed. Otherwise, what were they writing about?
The Hebrew faith.
So the reality is that you can't base a religion on some sacred text.
Wait, hold on a second. Hold on. So please correct me if I'm wrong. Doesn't Christian literally translate to follower of Christ?
Yes.
Okay. Was there a Christ before Christ?
No.
Did we have access to?
We were talking about the Bible, not Christ. That's what I'm making the distinction here. We don't follow the Bible.
You made was with Christendom.
Okay, but
pardon me,
John, you understand. You have a really good understanding of church history. It sounds like, and you know how stories change over time, right? And how they begin, and then how they shift.
Yes.
So, Christianity, as we understand it, didn't exist before the Bible. Christ, Jesus, Yeshua, whatever the name was, may have existed as a rabbi who was preaching one of many apocalypse myths. There were multiple cults at the time that were offshoots of Judaism. I believe there were at least 30 during that span of time. Yeshua was probably one of them. And then after he was killed, his followers continued along, and Paul came into the situation and took that mythology and took that story and built it into something else. And that's where we get a lot of Protestant, at least, versions of Christianity, is from Paul's letters and Paul's interpretations of the stories of this quote unquote prophet Yeshua. So I'm confused about why this matters. Like, we understand how the myth started, and we understand that Paul didn't make it up out of thin air, probably, and that there was a myth that is the basis of this. But I don't understand why we're going down this rabbit hole.
Well, because what you just described is not the history of the Orthodox, and we don't believe any of that.
So in my experience, that is accurate, and that maps to reality. So how do we tell if my experience of the historicity of the Bible and your experience of the historicity of the Bible, who's right?
Well, that's something that everyone has to figure out. That is a very important question.
We're trying, man. We're really trying to figure it out. That's why we're having this conversation. You seem to have answers. We want them.
We just want reliable methods.
Well, you want to know how I see it as opposed to how you described it?
Well, I want to know, you're saying that that's not what you believe, and you clearly have a very strong belief in something else. So I want to know, hey, if I'm wrong, I want to know why I'm wrong. Please tell me where I'm going wrong and why your experience of this historicity is better than mine. Because you can't just say, well, mine is different, and then expect me to have any kind of change of heart, right?
Okay. Yeah. So I can explain how I believe it. Okay.
I don't want to know how. I want to know why. I really don't care about the specifics at this point, because at this point you're just making claims.
Right. Oh, exactly. But okay, why do I believe that? Well,
yeah.
So you've asked me why I became Orthodox, but
okay, all right.
So, Father John,
the thing is that there's many questions here, so there's many of these questions I could answer. So I want to know which question exactly it is you want me to answer.
Well, let's dive into the core of the show. What do you believe and why?
Okay.
So when we were asking why you moved from one understanding of Catholicism to another, is because we're thinking, okay, obviously Father John has some kind of evidence. There's something that pushed him to go, you know what? No, this telling of Catholicism is correct, and this one is not. And so that could give us some insight into what you're using to determine what is true and what is not true.
Okay.
Do you understand why that question counted? And really, ultimately,
absolutely. And I attempted to explain that to you before, but you thought it was a No True Scotsman argument. So
because yes,
that's the reality of it. I can't say they're wrong without saying they're wrong.
Right, but we want to know why they're wrong.
It doesn't mean you're right. If you point to somebody and say they're wrong, that doesn't make you automatically right. You need to have evidence for your beliefs. And if it's situated on pointing fingers at other people and you have no evidence to yourself, then you still have no good reason to believe it. It's like sitting back and saying, that's silly that you believe in fairies. That's silly that you believe in Bigfoot. But me, man, I've got good evidence for aliens, and me and Zeno, we're tight. Like, dude, you need to have good reason for your beliefs too.
Yes. Everyone has their own reasons for their belief, and I'm not going to deny the fact that they have those reasons. And
no one's denying that you have reasons. We want to make sure that they're good ones, because that's how we determine what's helpful.
I will attempt to explain this before, but you will have to let me actually continue and explain it. As I was saying, when I was taking that course in scholastic philosophy, I realized that the basis of Roman Catholicism is scholasticism, is belief in the human intellect to discover the truth. That is the basis of Roman Catholicism. I found that to be true, and I knew that was not the basis of Christianity.
How do you know that?
So I had no choice, because Christianity, according to the Orthodox, is something that's given, a divine inspiration. It has to do with humility to realize that our fallen human intellect is not capable of coming to such truths, that it has to be given to us.
I totally understand. I had a friend who is Jewish, who do you know what Jewish birthright is?
Yes. You're talking about the Celtic Jews, right?
I'm talking about the program that Israel does that brings young Jewish people to Israel and teach them.
Sorry. I misheard you. Sorry.
It's okay. That's okay.
My friend talking about the Druids.
No, Jews, the Hebrew people.
Sorry.
No worries. So he went on birthright, and he came back, and he had the exact same reason. I took a class, and in that class, I learned that this is true. And that it took him a while to sit back and actually reason through whether or not it was correct for him to believe what was going on in that class. It sounds like you're saying, I believe this is true because my class taught me that this is true.
Except I never took a class to teach me this.
So how did you come to the conclusion?
Well, I just knew that this was actually an aspect of Christianity.
I just knew. Okay.
Yes.
V just knows that it's not. Now what?
Okay.
Now what? Are you both right?
Well, one of us is obviously wrong.
Okay. How do you determine that?
Well, each one's going to have to determine that for themselves.
No, because one of you is wrong. Don't you care about who's right? I mean, dude, don't you care?
Okay, well, since I am a Christian, I would follow the example of Christ, correct?
Dude, there are so many different sects of Christianity. Don't expect me to follow you on that line. Just go.
No, wait. You hear me out here.
Okay,
now, the thing is, because
sure. If you're going to follow the example of Christ, then I would say that Christ said, I will not cast my pearls before the line.
No. When Christ taught, he taught them. And if they left, they left. He's not going to force his opinions on others. If they want to follow him, they are free to do so.
Yeah, tell that to the money changers in the temple.
What's this?
Tell that to the money changers. I'm sure he let them go. Oh no, he overturned the tables, didn't he? Now you're being selective in your scripture. I don't know where to go from here.
No, we're not being selective. No, we're not being selective. We're taking two specific examples that have very different contexts, and you have to understand them in their context. When he taught, he did not tell the money changers to follow his teachings. He told them to quit making the house of his father into a den of thieves. It was very different. He wasn't teaching them anything.
That sounds like
by example. But when he was talking about, that you have to eat my body and blood, and people left, he didn't chase after them, try to force them. No, you misunderstood me, or try to force that. He turned to his apostles and said, "Will you leave me also?" He didn't force anybody to follow him.
Okay, well then I think if you're
that is the example to follow.
Okay, it's been 40 minutes. We have other callers on the line.
Okay.
When you call back, one thing I would love to talk about, V, I don't know about you, but if your God just leaves it to people to make up their own minds and will punish people in hell if they're wrong, and that's good enough reasoning, I think that either you're being way too laissez-faire or your God's a monster. And I would love to talk about whether or not that God can be good on the next weekend.
So the next time I phone in, we'll talk about hell then.
The problem of evil is specific.
Sure, sounds good to me.
All right.
Sounds good.
Okay.
Thanks, John.
You have a good day.
You too.
Ooh, that was a very long call.
That was a long call, but it was a good one, I think. I'm glad John called back in.
Yeah, me too. Yeah. Okay. Let's talk to Brad in Virginia. Brad, you're live with Eric and V. What would you like to talk about?
Hi. Oh, wow. Okay. So I have a friend. I don't want to dox him, so I'm going to call him Chris.
Okay.
And Chris has some interesting views, to say the least.
Okay.
Namely, he's very, very opposed to gay marriage.
Mm-hmm.
And I have repeatedly pointed out to him that, well, frankly, his opinion is overturned by the fact that gay marriage is, in fact, quite legal.
So,
And his response is basically the equivalent of, well, what if slavery were legal?
so actually, he's got a point. With the reasoning that you gave, that's a good point. Something being legal doesn't make it right.
Oh, I agree.
Yeah, having opposition to something, we should definitely have some better reasons than that. Is he open to listening to you, or is this just an argument?
Well, I maintain the position that what is right is dictated by the society that the action is being judged in. And ultimately that boils down to what's legal. But I recognize that what's legal is not necessarily universally what's right. The law can change, but ideally what's right should not change.
So, V, do you want to pick this up, or do you want me to?
Yeah, so I think that we're trying to put a lot of weight onto a very single word, which is right. So let's, instead of using the word right, because that has a lot of different connotations and can mean a lot of different things, let's split this up into ethical and let's split this up into legal, okay? Because they're two different things, and sometimes they overlap and sometimes they don't. So when something is ethical, that means that it is good for the other people in the society. It benefits thriving. It's humanistic. It values consent. It values informative dialogue. Ethical is, I scratch my back, you scratch my back, I scratch yours, right? Legal is just what happens to be on the books. And a lot of the time, society progresses much quicker than the laws do. And a lot of the time, we determine ethical behavior based on living in a society and what we like and what we don't like and what benefits us and what doesn't. And then we retroactively have to go back and change the laws and say, okay, we had this where we're here now. We moved all the way over here. So now we have to go back and drag the law along behind us. And that happens quite frequently. So for me, I would say, let's move it away from the legal aspect, because really that doesn't make any headway into whether or not it's right? Because slavery was legal at some point, and helping slaves escape was illegal. So let's leave the legality aside. So let's not say it's legal, so it's right, or it's legal, so it's wrong. Let's say, is it ethical? Does it value consent? Does it see humanity in the other person? Does this harm people without their consent? And if the answer to those questions leaves you into a position of, yes, this is something that people consent to do. This is not something that harms anybody else. This is not something that infringes on other people's rights. Then yeah, I'd say that it's ethical, and that's all we need to worry about. And that's why we can hold gay marriage on this side as this is ethical, because it's consensual, it doesn't hurt anybody else, and it's something that is done in love and acceptance. And slavery on the other side as something that is not ethical and something that can't be compared to it, because it doesn't value consent or the humanity of the people that it's harming.
Hopefully that gives you a little better tool to use, and also specifically, just want to make sure. So you only have so much bandwidth as a person when it comes to having these kinds of conversations. Make sure that you're spending it on a conversation that's worth having. If somebody is, if someone's closed off to listening, then you're not having a conversation. You're being annoying. And as much as
they've often told me that they find what I'm doing annoying, and
then leave
they're
it alone.
advocating for it's not so much. Okay, they happen to be Catholic, and every single time I challenge them on seemingly anything, it ultimately boils back to the Bible tells me so, and so it becomes.
A conversation requires two people. Brad, a conversation requires two people. And if the other person's not showing up, then you're talking at them. It doesn't
I
matter how
know.
much you want it. It doesn't matter how much how crappy they are. There are a lot of crappy people that we can't control. And it sounds like you're spending a lot of emotional energy on something that you have zero control over, and that's just hurting you.
Yes, I guess. I guess that's
I
true.
mean, care for yourself on that. Like, if somebody does not want to talk to you, you can't make them talk to you. If someone is not open to listening, then continuing to bug them about it's not necessarily going to do anything. There are other things that you can do. You know, if somebody says, "Hey, you know, atheists can't be good people," endeavor to be a good person in your personal life, so that you can be an example, so that they can look and go, "Hey, that person's an atheist, and they're a good person. Geez, maybe I need to rethink some of these things." But approaching the same person over and over, and they don't want to talk to you about it, don't do that. It's not helping, and it's only hurting you.
And if they approach you over and over, and they're the ones who want to have this debate but are not willing to listen to your side, you also have the right to walk away. You also have the right to say, you know what? I've had this conversation with you, and you don't respect my side of this conversation. You've never budged. You've never asked for my opinion. So I don't feel like this is a useful conversation for us to have anymore. Let's be friends and not talk about it. Or if you can't be friends with this person, then say, you know what, the way that you're dealing with this conversation and the views that you're espousing here are making it very difficult to have a relationship with you. So it's also, if they're the one coming at you with this question, and they're the one who is pushing these conversations on you, you have the right to say no as well.
Hopefully that helps.
Give me a lot to think about.
Yeah. Thanks for calling in, Brad.
Definitely. And if you want a resource, check out A Manual for Creating Atheists by Peter Boghossian. He calls it dogmatic openness. And that's something that I think you should check. Is somebody open to listening and to challenging their worldview, and open to really engaging, or are they just waiting for their turn to talk at you? And that can be a good tool to determine whether or not it's worth having that conversation.
Okay. Thank you.
Absolutely.
Thanks,
Bye.
Brad.
Okay, before I move on to the next call, I do want to say that we have some open lines.
Yes.
And we made a choice about who we're going to talk to and what conversations we're going to have. We've listened to the emails. So we have Kevin waiting in the queue to talk to us. And we need more theist callers. If you believe, if you want to talk to us, call now. The number is right there on the screen, and also there's a link to call internationally. Now is your time, because otherwise, we're going to be pretty limited. We're not taking Kevin. I am going to talk to Arthur in Poland, though. Arthur, you're live with Eric and V. What would you like to talk about today?
Hello, Arthur.
Arthur? Arthur going once. Arthur going twice. Hello.
Hello.
Can you hear me, guys? Sorry?
Yes.
Great. Hello, guys. Thank you. Thank you for taking my call. Greetings from Poland. So just not to lose your time waiting for the theist callers, I'm an atheist. Really. I'm an atheist for some time. And since Poland is Roman Catholic by default, so when you speak to a guy, he is a Roman Catholic by default, it's not easy to be an atheist here altogether. But since I deconverted when I was already in a relationship with a lovely lady who is a theist, now we have a second child. And soon the baptism is coming, Roman Catholic, the water stuff, and so on. And I'm how should I approach, because I'm not sure about that. And I'm a little bit concerned. On one hand, it's just some water, some ceremony, and it doesn't do the harm, right? But in the other hand, I'm a little bit maybe confused is the good word, yeah? So I just called you. Maybe you will have some, I don't know, advice, support, or I don't know, really. Maybe you can somehow support me in this.
So in my experience, relationships are very, very, very different from each other. So this is definitely not a one-size-fits-all thing. The best solution, I think, is going to be couples counseling. Go to a counselor together so that you can talk about those things in a productive, structured way that works for both of you, because I don't know you or your wife well enough to know what would work for the two of you. That said, if you are not saying anything and it is really upsetting you, then you could be sowing some seeds here. You could be creating something that could cause resentment later on. And I don't know if that's true in your case, but what I do know is that communication is going to be your best suit, your best way to go about it. And if you think that having that third person, then I definitely highly suggest couples counseling.
I don't know, Arthur. Are there secular therapists in Poland? I'd imagine that it probably would be very difficult to find a therapist who would be able to talk with you about this and not take your wife's side.
Honestly, there are secular therapies like this marriage counseling, but not in the religion cases. So if you would like to find, as far as I know, if you would like to find something like I don't know, please help me, this recovering from religion stuff, or which is in the US, or pretty much something like that. I think, or more or less religion-related counseling. I don't think so that there is anything like that, because here it is very unpopular to be an atheist, or even maybe not to be an atheist, to say it openly that you are, or that you believe, do not take this whole stuff seriously. Here people go to this church, they sit for this 1 hour just to looking on the watch to pass time, and thank you, this is it. This is another Sunday, yeah?
Yeah.
And usually they don't take it seriously, but it is by default, yeah?
Right,
That's
it's a social norm.
Problem, because if... Correct.
Well, Arthur, I do want to preface this by saying I don't have kids. I'm not married. So this is just coming from me as a stranger on the internet, as we like to say. But my thought would be, there is no magic in a baptism, right? There is nothing about a baptism that makes your child into a religious person, or it guarantees that they will be a religious person. So one way to look at this would be, you know what, if it's going to cause a massive amount of strife and you're okay with giving a little bit in this situation, having your kid being baptized. I was baptized multiple times as a kid. Didn't take, apparently. But there's nothing about the... I was just going to say, there's nothing...
This was my approach. There is nothing about it. This is just few drops of water. This is not synchronization, or sorry for my English. This is nothing like who will make something significant. So I just thought that maybe I can go through this because I can. And maybe this is a good approach. And later, when the child will grow up, we will see how this will end up. And maybe this was my current approach. But in the end, I was wondering if in the end I wouldn't have some bad feelings about it, if you know what I mean, yeah?
Yeah.
That's why I called, really.
Yeah.
Right.
I think that definitely speaks to you wanting to co-parent and you making concessions so that your partner can be happy in the way that they want to parent as well. And doing that sounds great. If you feel like it's okay to have a conversation, do they know that you're an atheist?
Yeah. She knows. I used epistemology on her a few times to somehow make her more reasonable, but this unfortunately didn't make anything for past 5 or 6 years.
No worries. Then
Mhm.
just say, I really want to co-parent with you. I
Yeah.
see this is something that's important to you, and so let's do. Like, if it's something that you are willing to give on and go with, just make sure that you're communicating. I don't know your marriage. I don't know, those things, but in my experience, communication has been very, very beneficial, especially moving forward. Because you can say, hey, you know what? I was kind of uncomfortable. Remember, we talked about this, but I wanted to do this, because I want to respect you parenting here. Just make sure that they know.
Yeah, another thing to do might be
Then
say,
again, oh, go ahead.
say if she knows that you're an atheist and she knows that you might be uncomfortable with this, say, hey, I'm willing to give and take here a little bit. I'm willing to let you baptize our second kid. I'm going to feel weird about it. It's going to make me feel kind of icky, but I want to support you and I want to make sure that we're giving a little bit to the other person. But then I want to make sure that during, ask for something else in return. Say, hey, you can baptize the kid, sure, but then after that, I want to watch Cosmos with them by Carl Sagan, right? Or I want to, be in charge of which science books they read as a kid, or something like that. So give and take maybe a little bit, and say, hey, this is something that makes me feel uncomfortable.
Yeah, the problem that thank you guys, because this is also what I thought would be great, the communicating, but this will be internally in our family. But unfortunately, here in this country, the whole, like you said, the society pressure, I would call this, is like that. Now you start with baptism. In second grade, you have this first communion. Then after you had this, and everybody has it, and so on and so on. So even if I will go through this baptism stuff, which is, like we said, no harm at all. This is nothing, right? I don't know, at scouts, making someone a scout boy or whatever, giving a medal. Then in the second grade, when this first communion will arrive, then there will be another problem and another problem, another issue, another conversation like that, and then I think it will be much more bigger issue than now. Yeah.
Then if you're seeing that coming down the road, talk to them about it. Go to couples counseling, because you're already seeing something that could be a problem. Don't wait until that time comes. Start working on it now while it's manageable.
Good.
Now we've got to head over to the next.
I think so. I think so, because
from what I'm hearing, though, Arthur, you're on point. You're coming to the same conclusions that we are. I agree with your approach so far, and I think that you're clearly a good dad and a good husband. So keep it up.
Yeah, definitely. Take care, man.
Thanks. I hope so.
All right. So we do have a couple theists on the line.
Lovely.
I'm excited about it. I don't know about you, View. I don't want to take Kevin anymore.
Yeah, it's at this point, it's same old, and we need to keep this fresh for the viewers. So let's
take care, man. Good luck calling other shows. But I think we're done. So
yeah,
drop him
try
off.
Truth Wanted. Sorry, Dan.
Yeah. Anyway, before we head on to the next theist caller, though, I do want to thank our patrons. It's that time.
Yes.
I just refreshed it, and I want to thank our top 5 patrons: Dingaloo, Jay Friedman, Kamal, Ribau, and Ward Nippling. Thank you so much.
Nice, some new names in there. That's exciting.
Definitely. Thank you so much. It's your patronage that keeps us going, and we sincerely appreciate it. If you want to consider, if you want to support us, you can go to patreon.com/talkheathen-to-me. That's patreon.com/talkheathen-to-me. All right. Let's move on to the next call while we can. Evan in Ohio. You're live with Eric and V.
Hi.
What would you like to talk about today?
Hello.
So I had one kind of specific thing. I know I said I'm a theist, but I wasn't really looking to talk about my theism. Because I basically just believe in God, and that's it. I don't have a religion or anything, and that's thanks to you guys in part, because I've been listening to you guys a lot, and I used to be a Baptist, and then I got shown a lot of things that were wrong with it through this show and other shows like it.
Rock on.
So
That's
I
awesome.
I'm just kind of holding on to the God belief still, because I just kind of feel like that's there. But what I really wanted to talk about was my sister, who is still very Christian.
Mhm.
And I love her to death. She's 6 years younger than me, and she's very bright. So it kind of kills me that she's still holding on to things like this. But she thinks homosexuality is wrong.
Mhm.
And I kind of, my brother and I both have, noticed that she's been kind of, I know it sounds weird to say notice, but we kind of noticed that she's either bisexual or homosexual, because we saw on her phone something, but that's besides the point. We don't have to talk about that. But what I want to talk about is how I can approach her with this, knowing that she's very adamantly against homosexuals, and also seeing that she might be having those feelings. I can tell she's struggling big time, and I just don't really know how to talk to her about it.
Yeah.
Well, so there are a number of approaches, and I think that one approach could work, and at the same time, that same approach could absolutely destroy that relationship, because that's so different. The safe option that I would say generally works, that I've seen, is make sure that they know that you're available, that you care, and that you're there for them. Because it sounds like she needs to go on a journey, and as much as you love her, you can't take that journey for her. And I know it bites.
Yeah.
He's somebody you care about, and you want to reach out and bring them with you, but they've got to get themselves. Your sister's going to have to get there herself, and making sure that you're set up as a resource. Make sure that she knows, no matter what I do, my brother's going to love me. And check in. Those things. It's going to take time. It's going to take time, and it sounds like if she's really struggling with it, that, I mean, you chiming in may not add any more noise than she's already adding for herself.
Mhm.
And so
I'm just worried that kind of approaching it would be almost digging in too far, and it would get her, like, no matter what I say, it would get her angry at me.
Well,
I tried before to talk to her kind of slowly into it about slavery, but she said, "Oh, that's the Old Testament, and that's under the old law." And so I tried this. I'm not too versed in the Bible, so I didn't know about homosexuality in the Bible, but I was trying to convince her the same of that, then, like, just kind of be on, in her, on the same page as her. But it's like she's picking and choosing which ones are right. But I didn't want to just straight up say, "Hey, I think this is what's going on with you," because
don't do that. That wouldn't be good. Yeah.
But
I think that's a good instinct to use a different example. That's kind of what we do on the show a little bit. So using SE, street epistemology. Do you watch Anthony Magnabasco's channel at all?
I do not even know who that is.
Okay. Check out Anthony's channel. If you type in street epistemology Anthony, you'll find it. I'm not going to make you spell his last name. I know how that is as somebody with a very difficult last name. But here, something you could try is not bring it up in a situation where you're talking about her at all, right? If you are going through the process of building a different worldview, right? I'm not going to say deconverting necessarily, because I don't think you're there yet. You said you still believe in a God. But if you are leaving the Baptist faith tradition, then clearly you're doing a lot of thinking and you have a lot of questions. And you can come to her and you say, "Hey, I've got questions. Why is homosexuality bad according to our belief system? Can you walk me through why that is?" And then just ask questions about that. "Oh, well, what about this verse? Oh, well, what about the historical context?" Because a lot of Christians who I know are in the LGBT community and also very devoutly Christian because they found ways to reconcile the two. And they found ways to say, hey, that didn't actually mean what we thought it did. That's a translation thing. And well, I have issues with progressive Christians.
Tried to tell her that.
Yeah. And then, honestly, that's all you can do. And I know that that's hard, but if you're having these conversations and you're asking these questions and you're doing that research for yourself to bring to her, that all shows that you care very much. And that's really good. But if she's just rebuffing it, then she might not be ready to talk about it. And that doesn't mean she never will be.
Yeah.
But right now, I think Eric's spot on. You're asking questions where applicable. You're backing off when you need to, when she's getting mad, and you're there for her, right? You're showing her that you're there, that you care, and that whatever choice she comes to, she can come to you with those questions first. For me, that's what I do with my siblings. All my siblings are still very religious. And I don't know who's going to stay religious and who's going to move away, if any of them, from their faith. But I make sure that I make myself available so that if they do have questions, they know who they can come to for a non-judgmental perspective on things. So just doing that is a lot.
My biggest thing is I just want her to be happy, and to kind of move past the whole idea of religion. And I know I said I'm still a theist, but just I personally don't like the idea of religion, and I've been trying to kind of persuade her of that because I know she's still young. She's only 22, and she has plenty of time to figure stuff out.
Yeah.
But I'm scared of her digging her heels in like I did for a while, where it took me so long to get past that.
Yeah.
The thing is I as an older brother, I think all of us are older siblings in this call, aren't we?
Yep.
Yeah. As an older brother, I feel you. You don't want to see them fall in the same hole that you fell in, but sometimes they gotta.
Yeah, that's how they learn.
Yeah, definitely use I statements while you can. Simply saying, hey, I want to talk to you about this, but I'm worried. I love you and I care about you. And I'm worried that having this conversation would damage our relationship or damage the way that you see me. And that really scares me. And so I want to talk to you, but I want to talk to you in this way because, and if you're upfront about that, if you say, hey, here's where I'm at, what's she going to say? I mean, you're not putting something on her to own. You're being forward about yourself and you're being honest. You're saying, hey, here's my worry. Here's my concern. Here's what I want. But the most important thing is that I want to maintain this relationship with you. So long as you want to maintain that relationship.
Yeah. Honestly, I don't think she would stop having a relationship with me. I just think it would become a little more hostile at times,
Yeah.
But
and unfortunately, that
really
sometimes
sweet.
happens. But as long as you care about each other as much as it sounds like, I think you guys will be okay.
Yeah.
Okay. I wanted to say too to that last caller, I can't imagine what it would be like to have a wife on a completely separate page as you.
I've actually met atheist activists who are very, very, very in the movement, whose spouses believe. And I've got to say, I commend them for the amazing amount of communication that they have.
That would be intense.
Yeah, but that love and commitment to co-parenting definitely shows that it can work. That said, it sounds like you're well on your way through things, man. Glad you called in. And if you do want to challenge any of your own God beliefs, we're here.
Yeah.
Okay. I'm a little too scared to do that right now. I'm kind of hanging on to it, but.
When you're ready, call back in.
Yeah. We're not going away.
All right.
Take care.
Thanks.
Mm-hmm.
You guys have a good rest of the show.
Will do.
Thank you.
I liked Evan.
Yeah. I felt it too, right? Like that's a big sibling being worried about their little sister, and that's like that hits in the feels right there.
Right. I only have one younger sister, and all the rest are younger brothers. But she just recently got married last year, and now she's expecting in a few months. And
You're gonna be Huh?
Super preggers, and I'm so excited. Anyway.
I can't wait for one of my siblings to finally have a kid so that I no longer have to.
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
The oldest kid, I'm like throwing that hot potato to somebody else.
Yep, it's the same here. I'm 8 years older than the next one, and it's been, Eric, when am I having a grandbaby? Mm-hmm. So
I'm gonna be the cool. I don't know. I'm not an aunt or an uncle. Ent. I'll be an ent. Sounds good. Yeah, there isn't one. Don't try it. Don't try. Don't try. There's not one. It's gonna wreck your brain.
Let's move on to the next caller. Before I take Tom, I do want to say we do still have open lines, you guys. If you want to call in, now's the time. But let's talk to Tom. Tom, you're live with Eric and V. What would you like to talk about today?
Hi, Eric and V. Thanks for having me on. And to talk today about evidence for the resurrection of Jesus and the attitudes that I guess the Bible authors had about what happened. So I'm a questioning theist. I was raised that way, and I do get a lot out of asking questions. This is my first time calling on Talk Heathen, but a couple months ago I called the Atheist experience for the first time, and that was a great experience. So
awesome.
I thought it would be neat to ask you guys, so, like, first of all, like, in a broad sense, what do you think of like the Bible and the accounts of the resurrection? Are they historic? Are they like legends? So we can get started with that. I'd appreciate that. What do you guys think?
Yeah, good question. So for me, I think that the Bible as a whole is a book that is a very valuable piece of history, not because it's all historically accurate, but because it is old and it is a founding text for a lot of what we consider to be modern society. So yes, as a book, I'm not going to dismiss its impact or the value of knowing about it. I think that there is a lot of poetry in there that's really beautiful at times. You know, Proverbs is cool sometimes. And then we get into the myths of the great kings of Israel, right? And we get into the myths of Jesus. And then we get into Revelation, which is, depending on your interpretation, a acid trip or a veiled rant against the Roman Empire or whatever you want to consider that. So I think that it's a useful book to talk about and to know at least basically what is in it. In terms of Jesus specifically and the resurrection, I think that probably there is a grain of truth in that there was some kind of vigilante, for lack of a better word, a rabbi that was against the Roman Empire and railed against the fact that Rome controlled Jerusalem and raised up a small group of followers with talk about a new kingdom and a new God is coming back and he's going to crush our enemies and all of this. And then he probably got crucified like many dissidents did at the time. And if you look at the book of Mark, which is one of the oldest versions of the gospel, that's kind of where the story ends, right? We don't get a resurrection story there. And then as we see the gospels start popping up later and later and later, we see the myth kind of grow and grow and grow. So first it's just Jesus died, here's his sayings, and this is Mark. And then we've got, Matthew and Luke where he raises from the dead. And then we've got John, where it becomes even more blown up into these epic proportions. And then we've got gospels that aren't in the Bible that were written after that, where it becomes even more far-fetched and giant ethereal crosses come down from the sky during the resurrection and walk around, which is strange to imagine. So for me, I think that there's probably a grain of truth there, and I'm willing to grant that. But as far as the resurrection, I think that's probably part of an ever-growing myth around the character of Jesus.
Yeah. Got it. Yeah, you said a lot. I agree with what you said about the value of the scriptures and how much influence it's had. And yes, I question too how much of it is legend and how much is honestly what the people believed back then and why. And so I'm trying, I've listened to people like N.T. Wright. I don't know if you've heard him. He's like a New Testament scholar. And he has been arguing about how firmly the people did believe in a bodily resurrection back then. And I take it seriously. I don't know if it would be possible for a legend about that to form. And I don't know. I wonder how Christianity took off and why they didn't choose, like, one of his points was, why didn't they choose another Messiah for them after Jesus was crucified? Like, wouldn't it have made more sense for them to say, oh, maybe his brother's the Messiah? Or, so, like, those are tough questions for me. And, like, I take them seriously, but yet I don't. Like, I'm still, like, I've always doubted. And I mean, just from an emotional point, I grew up believing that the Bible was all inerrant and all infallible. Mm-hmm. And so that was kind of the first reason why I started questioning, because I was getting hurt by that. And, just earlier this morning, I was listening to one of my old preachers who said, like, the Word of God is always the right thing. And, it can be misused, but, like, using that as the top authority. And so that scares me. And, I'm on a journey, but yet I'm not ready to just say, okay, I know for a fact it was a legend. Like, I'm still searching for an explanation for why the people in the Bible, like, wrote as if maybe there was a physical resurrection. So I'll stop there. Don't want to go on too long, but, like, do you get it at all? And, like, I want to know, like, are there other religions?
Totally.
Like, so, okay.
Yes. And I do want to clarify one thing before we move on, and I'll let Eric weigh in on his view of this as well. But there's a difference between, I don't know for sure that it was a legend. That is the best conclusion that I can come to with the evidence that I have and the research that I've done. It's the version that has the fewest assumptions about things I can't prove, like the existence of a God or an afterlife or the possibility of resurrection. So that is the thing that makes the most sense to me based on what I've looked at. But you don't have to know that for sure before you can start moving away from that, right? Because that puts the burden of proof on proving that it was a legend, when in fact the burden of proof should be on the people claiming that there are other things going on as well, right? Oh, it was God, it was a resurrection, it was the supernatural, he was the Son of God, all of this. Okay, well, we don't have to disprove that. We have to prove that. And if you can't do that, then that's where that questioning comes in, and that looking for, okay, I can't prove that. I don't see sufficient evidence for that. What other explanations are there that might be a little bit more grounded in reality and what I can discover myself? So just in terms of that. Also, if you're looking for more research, the Lost Gospels, or Lost Christianities rather, by Bart Ehrman, is beautifully written. It is so interesting, and I definitely would recommend that.
Yeah.
Cool. Thank you.
If I can weigh in just a little bit, but I want you to have the opportunity to respond to V.
Sure.
If there's anything, because I'm going to keep going. So if there's anything you wanted to throw in before I do. No? Okay, cool.
Go for it.
It sounds like what you're saying, and please correct me if I'm wrong. It sounds like you're saying that you need to understand why these apostles thought what they did in order to prove or disprove the claim. It sounds like a lot is hinging on what was in their minds.
Yeah, I'm curious as to why they believed that and why it became a phenomenon. And
sure,
that makes sense. Yeah,
it does. It absolutely does. Here's the thing: I think you're setting yourself up for some failure here, man. And I'll tell you why. Right? Let's go through both of the scenarios where they, let's say they honestly, truly believe that they had an experience. That still doesn't mean that experience happened. It could be there are plenty of people, and I know I point out cults who say, that they saw their cult leader perform miracles. How do you know that those people weren't deceived? I think they could have been very honest about it. But whether or not they were honest about it doesn't impact whether or not the claim is true. And so whatever was in their minds doesn't really impact whether or not the resurrection happened. All it does is talk about what was in the apostles' minds. And it makes me think of an episode that I believe it was V and Jenna Belk on the Atheist Experience, where someone called in who was Jewish. And they said that they were given the task, you have to find a fish that has no scales and no fins. And if you can find a fish that has no scales and no fins, then you've proved that God does not exist. What does that have to do with anything? Right? There's a similar Muslim one, and that is if you can can make the sun move the opposite direction, so instead of rising in the east and setting in the west, if you can make the sun rise in the west and set in the east, then you can disprove them. Neither of those things have anything to do with the truth claims made in their books. They're just setting up some impossible task for you. And I think if I remember the episode correctly, V, correct me if I'm wrong, but you said, until you can show me a unicorn, I'm right.
Yeah.
So you need to bring me a unicorn.
Who can play at that game?
Yeah. And until you do, then I'm right about pretty much everything. And but you see how those things are not connected?
Yes, I do. And I have considered that, let's say that there was some miraculous resurrection. That doesn't even prove that Jesus is God per se.
Right.
Like maybe it could prove that it's a weird world we live in and we don't know something. So I know that like it takes another whole step to say, oh, everything in the Bible and all the claims are true in it. So yes, I'm aware of that. And that's what keeps me questioning. Anyways, I do still wonder about like why it caught on, if it was a dishonest or if it wasn't a significant experience that they had of Jesus. Like, like maybe it was a spiritual, or like someone witnessed Jesus as angel instead of a physical resurrection. Like that's hard to and people like N.T. Wright say that the best explanation is a physical resurrection to fit how they were talking about it. And I don't know, I guess I don't mean to like belabor the point, but like that still is, I don't know.
Can I ask you,
okay,
is that different from an ad populum argument?
My
ad
argument
let me explain it. I apologize. That's Talk Heathen is for explaining this. I'm sorry. Ad populum is the idea that something is true because it's popular, right? All of the people believe it, and therefore it's most likely true. Or everyone jumped on that bandwagon, therefore, and so
right.
it becoming popular. Is its growing popularity, does that directly determine whether or not the claim is true? I don't think so.
No, not necessarily. No.
Yeah. And so that might also be kind of a weird path to go on. I don't think that's going to get you where you think it's going to. The popularity doesn't matter. But
yeah, right.
What if? I mean, okay. I could totally imagine a scenario where you have a people who are being who are under the thumb of the Romans, who are not liking it and finding a story that resonates with them and going along with it. There's power in narrative, and there's power in story. Yeah. And whether or not it's true, it can still unite people. I mean, and that alone should be one thing that should hopefully take you off of that course, because its popularity, really, it has nothing to do with its truth.
Yeah.
Thanks. Yeah, that's good to be reminded of that. And I do take that seriously. And I don't think that because something is so popular, it's true. Like, I mean, Muslim is a fast growing religion, and I could say, well, look, it must be true or all true or something like that, or maybe a grain of truth in it, because look how many people believe it. But then it's like it conflicts with another really popular religion, and I don't want to, just lay all of my hope on, it's popular. That's not what, that's not where I want it to end up. So anyway.
Tom, you're asking the right questions. You're asking all the right questions. I'm actually very excited for you.
You need to start a blog or something. I would read that.
Right?
A series. That way we can see your journey as you go through it.
Or you could just call back. We could check in.
Call back. Yes.
Thanks, guys.
Of course. And
all right. Well, I appreciate the time. You guys are great. It was nice talking to you.
You too.
Take care.
All right.
Wow.
Nice.
That was a very, very clear assessment. And he was ready too, right out of the gate. He was like, here's what I want to talk about.
Yeah.
And he was concise. I liked that a lot.
Great call. Great call. Yeah.
Let's move on and talk to Billy in North Carolina. Billy, you're talking to Eric and V. What would you like to talk about? Oh, wait, there we go. Billy, you're live with Eric
and V.
Hello.
Yeah, I'm here.
Hello. What would you like to talk about?
I want to thank you, first of all. You're two really great, good-looking people. You are confident in your age bracket. And as a 60-year-old man who's only been out, I'd say publicly as an atheist for the last 5 or 6 years, I wish I had the opportunity to live my life as young as you are, with a lot more confidence. So thank you for the show.
Oh, thank you so much, Billy. And I feel that I'm still feel like I missed a whole bunch of my childhood because of religion. So I feel that.
Yeah.
Well, I tell you, I started out a theist and grew up in a Pentecostal background, and then went to a Catholic school, and it's really, really tough. I liken it to the discrimination that a lot of different groups of Americans face. And it's probably maybe the last taboo almost is to be an atheist. I see homosexuals who have come so far to where they now have freedom to be themselves and live their true lives as great Americans. And one day, hopefully, there won't be such a stigma with atheists that we can just shirk off the nonsense.
I agree and I disagree with that. I would say that yes, atheists need an agenda, for lack of a better term. I was reading the book, The Gay Agenda by, I'm going to blank on her name. It's an amazing book that basically tracked the journey of LGBTQ people from like the 1940s to the 2008 California ruling on gay marriage. And so it was a fascinating look at exactly how they orchestrated it and how they came together under one banner and how they collaborated with the civil rights activists at the time, and really decided, hey, we're going to make ourselves visible. We're going to open ourselves up to potentially very harmful criticism and discrimination, but we're going to demand a seat at this table. And it worked to an extent. I mean, there's still places in the US where you will be killed for being gay. But overall, we are seeing that trend hopefully continuing towards full equality, full respect, full humanity, because they organized. And I don't think the atheists have done that here. I, however, think that it's dangerous to play the kind of what's it called? Like the victimhood Olympics, right? Where it's like, well, I'm more oppressed than you are, and you're more oppressed than I am, and try and compete in that way, because we all face different struggles. And I'd say that a straight male white atheist in America probably doesn't have more discrimination against him than, say, a Black trans woman who happens to also be Christian. So in other countries, I'd say yes. I'd say that in certain Middle Eastern countries, being an atheist is one of the biggest taboos and one of the most dangerous things that you could be. But yeah, I feel like the oppression Olympics probably isn't a helpful way to frame this, but I agree that we need to mobilize and we need to be activist and collaborate together.
Yeah, I mean, if I could just tie in a little bit. This is where I think intersectionality is incredibly important. And B, I know you were saying that already, and so I just kind of want to make sure that I highlight that. We all have different aspects to ourselves. All of these different characteristics of you intersect with each other. And because of that, recognizing that intersection can help. You know, just working on atheist things, right? Being an atheist is just an answer to one thing. It's the guide question. But this show, us as hosts, I can tell you we're humanists, we're skeptics as well. And especially motivated by the humanist piece, we want to be there to help support other movements that need that help, because we see other humans in need, right? And so I just want to,
right there with you.
That's where intersectionality comes in. People say, you know, that I've heard people say that intersectionality divides people, but I think it's the exact opposite. I think I'm in a category with a lot of other people who call themselves atheists, but recognizing all of the other things that make us unique, special, who we are. in as much as anyone is special, it's important to recognize. Now, I'm a nihilist.
Every walk is unique, and I understand that. It's just that what I have seen in my 60 years, there was a time when I was in my 20s and considered a good-looking man. A lot of things were a lot more acceptable. I could come out and say I'm gay, I like to have sex with other men, yet people would just look at you, and it's the old thing of, oh, it's a phase, you'll get over it, you'll try it, you won't like it, you'll come back to our side. Then you get a little older, you get more life experience, your education level becomes a little more distinct, and then all of a sudden, oh, we need to listen to this guy because he's got some oomph behind him, he's got some training, some life experience. And then you get to my age in your 50s and 60s, and you're no longer that young, good-looking, energetic, confident guy, and all of a sudden, I'm seeing young folks like you with that confidence and vigor for what your message is and what you're aiding to society. And I just congratulate you, and I wish it was probably 40 years ago for me.
Well, we're both. We're both blushing if you're not watching. We sincerely appreciate it, and
Sure.
Hopefully, you're talking about when you were young, how things were much worse. Hopefully, by the time we're in our 50s and 60s, that it's just that much better. And if we can just continue to push that progress forward, then I think we're doing a pretty good job. Right? We just got to keep going.
And if you don't mind the pun, just keep up the faith.
Doing the good work.
Oh no! Now there's two of you. Okay, Billy, it was really nice talking.
Thank you, guys.
Thank you, Billy.
You too. Bye-bye.
All right, I kind of want to move to the Discord and talk to people. It's one of those days.
Yeah, let's do that. I'm down.
Okay. So if you want to join the Discord and talk to us, go to tiny.cc/ACA Discord. We're only going to have maybe less than half an hour before the nonprofits go in, but I'd kind of like to dive in. It's been a while since we've done it.
Definitely.
Can we look at the crew cam?
Woo!
People right there. They're the ones who are working tirelessly behind the scenes to make this happen. Thank you so much, crew. Y'all rock.
Oh, the cat's wearing a tie.
Cat's wearing a tie.
The cat's wearing a tie. I can't stand it. Oh, I am deceased.
Thank you so much, you guys. We could not do this without you. This is a team effort, and we're so grateful. V, you're awesome. Period.
So are you. This was a good show. I'm feeling good.
Me too. Let me see if I can get some love rings up here. Ready? 1, 2, 3. Oh, it's so good.
Finally figured out which side to go at.
All right. So whether you believe or you don't believe, if you're putting yourself out there and you're putting yourself at risk, it looks like the second wave is coming. Or is starting to arrive.
The first wave hasn't ended yet.
One of those. Regardless, for those of you who are stocking the grocery shelves, working in hospitals, taking care of the elderly, bringing food to people who otherwise wouldn't be able to get it. I mean, from the bottom of our hearts, thank you. And you're doing your job. We're going to do ours. For those of you who don't believe, this is your community. And we're glad that you're here. And I've just got the warm fuzzies from that last caller. What about you, V? What do you think?
I've got warm fuzzies for a couple of the callers today.
Yeah.
Eric, I'm feeling it.
Definitely. I'm so proud to be in it. So y'all are amazing. If you have not hit the like button, if you have not subscribed, please do so, because it helps get the word out there and we can continue doing this. I think it's time, V. So for those of you who do believe, We don't
We
hate,
don't hate you.
we just
We
think
just think
you're
you're
wrong.
wrong.
See you next week.
What are we doing, man? What are we doing?